Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and if you're a guitar player who's looking to make some more money, then listen very closely to what I'm about to tell you. If you're a guitar player, or any other kind of musician for that matter, or if you know a musician who wants to make some more money without having to tour or go on the road, or put up with any of the other BS musicians normally have to deal with, then you need to download this new special report about how to make a small fortune by licensing your music. And by licensing music, I mean getting your music inserted into movies, television shows, and commercials. The report is less than 20 pages long, and it was written by Mike Elsner, who I interviewed in episode number 167 of this show. Mike's been doing this for over 14 years, and he's had over 2,000 songs licensed at this point in time. That means he's getting paid to license almost 150 songs per year. Now, keep in mind, most successful career musicians don't get paid for 150 songs in total over a 30 or 40-year career. Yet Mike's getting paid for this on an annual basis. And the cool thing about this business is that you can run it from your own home studio, and you'll never have to deal with ivory tower record label executives telling you what to play and how to play it, and no shady managers or unethical business people telling you what to do either. So download Mike's free ebook on the 4-step plan to licensing success right now. Just go to everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. Let me know how you like the book, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I am here with an incredibly proficient and really well-accomplished guitar player. He's a monster at his craft. We're here with Rick Vito, and I'm looking in his office. He's got 24 platinum and gold records hanging on the wall behind him, mostly or many of them from Fleetwood Mac, Bob Seger, and Jackson Browne. Rick's from just outside of Philadelphia, and he grew up playing blues up and down the East Coast as a kid. After meeting Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett, he was encouraged by them to move out to L.A., and he did this in 1971, initially touring with them and appearing on Todd Rundgren's classic album, Something Anything. Over the years, Rick's also toured and recorded with artists, now check this out, Little Richard, Dobie Gray, John Prine, John Mayall, Bonnie Raitt, Rita Coolidge, Maria Muldaur, Dolly Parton, John Fogerty, Delbert McClinton, and Jackson Browne, and he appeared on both albums, Lawyers in Love and Lives in the Balance by Jackson. He's also the guy responsible for the classic slide guitar solo on Bob Seger's Like a Rock, which, man, that might be the most popular, because of the Chevy commercial, that might be the most popular solo in the history of rock guitar.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Great if it were.
And he's also been featured on every single Bob Seger album released since 1986. Rick was also asked by Mick Fleetwood to join Fleetwood Mac after Lindsay Buckingham, and he played with them from 87 to 91, including the pregame show of the Super Bowl 27 in January 1993. He's also got an annual gig every New Year's Eve with Mick Fleetwood at Mick's Bar in Maui, where people like Christy McVie and Steven Tyler show up. Rick's released 5 CDs of his own over the years. He also has a signature guitar with Reverend, which is one of its most popular models, and we'll talk about both of those things today. Man, I appreciate your time. Are you sure you're in the right place?
I think so. Glad to be here, Craig.
Thank you so much. And at first, I just want to congratulate you. We were talking before the call. Rick's been with his wife going on 35 years. And, man, my hat's off to you. That's a real more beyond the 24 gold and platinum records. That's where it's at, man. Congratulations. I'm happy for you guys.
I'm really lucky that, like I told you earlier, I found the right woman, and she's an incredible person in my life and a very stabilizing force. So I feel fortunate indeed. I
should be interviewing her. She's the one who's put up with all the work. She's done all the hard work.
Part of our success is that she distances herself from what I do professionally, and that's worked out well. You know, a lot of times you'll see wives and girlfriends, they really want to be a part of the scene, etc. And that doesn't always work out.
Good, man. Whatever it is, you got the formula down, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
You've had such a rich career, so I want to talk about some of what you've done. But before we do that, what are you working on now that you're really excited about? We talked about some of the stuff beforehand, but maybe share some of that.
Well, you mentioned I had 5 solo CDs, but it's probably more like 10. And so I've finished, or I think I've finished. One wonders if you ever actually finish until it's turned in a new CD. I still think in terms of records and CDs. Mm-hmm. I'm dating myself, of course, but I've got a new collection that's finished or very much almost finished. And so there's been talking to a label or two to release it this year, and so I'm looking forward that will see the light of day in 2018.
And that's Soul Slide, the tentative title?
Yeah, that's a working title of Soul Slide, sort of capitalizing on the 2 elements, slide guitar being one of them. And I found that after I put this collection together that the image or the dimension of or the feeling of the soul came into either the feel or the lyrics or something to do with each song on the record. So
Soul Slide, awesome. Mm-hmm. And you said your 3rd signature guitar with Reverend's about to come out in Summer NAMM?
Yes, this is the 3rd version of my signature model. It's when I was on tour years ago with Bob Seger, I was, a lot of days off and just doodle around, drawing guitars like I've always done. And so I came up with a couple of ideas that really looked good to me, and I actually had them made as prototypes. And Reverend came to my attention a few years after that, actually about 10 years after that, and they liked my guitar, but they wanted to collaborate on an idea using some of my ideas and some of theirs. So my first one came out in, I think, 2003, and then the second one, which was a completely different design, came out maybe 4 years ago, and now this is the 3rd one. It's sort of retains a little bit of the vibe of the second one, but it's really cool looking, and we're refining the sound and the action, etc., just the fine points of the new guitar right now.
Well, that'll be cool because I may be at Summer NAMM, so I'll come to the booth and check out your
great.
Guitar.
Absolutely.
That would be very cool.
I see you have some Gibson and Fenders on the wall there, and you should add a Reverend to that.
I should add a Reverend. The Craig Garber, everyone loves guitar, Reverend guitar model.
Right.
And then you also got something on True Fire coming up.
Yes, I started talking with Brad at True Fire about doing an instructional, maybe slide/blues instructional series. So we're in the works on that right now too.
Awesome. Well, glad you got a bunch of stuff happening.
Thank you.
You've released, you said 10 albums, close to 10 albums over.
Something like that. Yeah, I think so.
What are the advantages or disadvantages of challenges or of releasing your own albums as compared to being a sideman? Because you've been really successful to both.
Sideman thing is it's a lot easier. You just kind of let your imagination wander and add whatever you come up with to that artist's music. Say if you're working in the studio or if you're going on the road, you just make sure you're punctual and don't mess up on the gig. It's not hard if you've got the know-how. Being a solo artist, you're responsible for everything, all your content, all your editing, the quality control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The band, the financial aspect of it is on you. And so it's like having your own business as opposed to going in and working for Mr. Smith down the road.
Which is still having your own business. It's just you're only doing your tasks are much more limited, I guess. Your what your scope is probably. Yeah,
I mean you have to have a clear vision, very clear vision of what you're doing, and it doesn't always work out being an artistic endeavor. it may be successful artistically, but not commercially. So there's all that to deal with too.
Do you prefer being in the studio or touring?
I prefer a balance. Too much touring is a headache. Too much staying at home or just working in the studio can get stale or boring too, because it's a different way of expressing yourself completely. When you're playing live, you're in the moment a lot easier. There's something that takes over that's of a more ethereal nature. And, that's, I think, where you do your best work. That's why sometimes live albums, if they're there and happen to capture that live thing on a good night, it can really have an extra amount of energy that, say, working in a studio doesn't always afford you. For sure.
I've thought of the classic live, the biggest live album, Frampton Comes Alive. That talk about capturing a moment. That was magic in a bottle.
Yeah, it did very well for him, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. For each of these artists, Rick, if you could talk about how you got the gig and the nature of the engagement, and if you have any cool stories about your experiences with him. John Fogerty.
My son, when he was 9, we lived in Los Angeles area, and I had him in a private school. And John's stepdaughter was in my son's class. So on Parents' Day, when you come to the school and you paint the buildings or you do the improvements like that, I got friendly with John that way, and we did a concert for the school. That was tremendously fun, just some of his stuff, and I did some of my stuff. And then a couple of years later, we actually found that we were both living in Franklin, Tennessee. And he asked me if I wanted to, he had a guitar position open, and they asked me if I wanted to do that. So that's how that came about.
Wow. Who'd have thought networking at your kid's school? That is wild.
Yeah. Painting the building with the rollers,
Have you met any other people doing that, painting that building?
No, that's kind of unique.
Wow, that's serendipity, man. That's things like that are just supposed to meant to be,
Yeah.
Did you tour with him, or did you play in a studio, or both? I
didn't do any recording in the studio with John ever. Just tour. We were. One really fun tour was he and Tina Turner. I think it was her last tour in Europe, and then we played all over the States too. It was kind of fun playing, all those iconic songs.
Yeah, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Was it weird to be? And you've experienced this a lot of times, so just forgive me in advance if this is a stupid question or a silly question. Was it weird when you're standing on stage and you look over and you actually see John Fogerty singing "Who'll Stop the Rain" or stuff like that?
I've had that experience many times with many artists.
Yeah.
I did a session the first time I really remember it was a long, long time ago and working in Los Angeles, and I was playing with two of the guys from Elvis's band for Jesse Colin Young, and hearing that voice come through the speakers, the same one that sang "Come on, people, get together now,"
yeah.
And that same voice, and looking over, and there's Jerry Sheff, Elvis's bass player, and there's I forget the keyboard player's name, but anyway, great player, great guys, and it's like you've heard all this before, but now you're a part of it.
Was it weird?
Not weird. It was just interesting. Very interesting. I had that experience with Roy Orbison too. We were sitting watching Roy do his vocal on the song that we just recorded the track for. Me and Jim Keltner, the iconic drummer.
Yeah.
And we just looked at each other and we went, "There's that voice," And it was just make the hair on your arms stand up.
Sure. Very cool, man. How about Jackson Browne? How'd you wind up meeting him?
Jackson, I had met through working with Bonnie Raitt. I was on tour with Bonnie Raitt, and Jackson would sometimes come and sit in. And Bonnie did a couple of Jackson songs, of course, and then Jackson started coming. I was working at this club in Los Angeles, a Studio City called Sash, which is actually where I met my wife. And Jackson would sit in with me, and we'd do Chuck Berry songs and things, just. And he soon after that was producing an artist named Greg Copeland, and David Lindley was out touring, so he wasn't available to do that record, and he asked me to do it. And we worked well together, and soon David Lindley decided that he was going to concentrate just on his solo career, and Bonnie was changing her band completely. Not for any reason other than that she's an artist that likes to, at that point, she used to change her band members from time to time. So Jackson took me in to that situation. And it was a succession of things, the sitting in with Bonnie, the playing on the record, the available position.
Man, I always find it so amazing, you can't connect the dots moving forward, but when you look back, the series of events that would have had to happen to make each one of these things click and fall into place is always pretty miraculous almost.
It is, and that's why I mentioned to you earlier that when I look back on all the things that I've been fortunate enough to have done and all the artists I worked with, that time and that place of Los Angeles in the 70s and the 80s was the perfect petri dish for all of these things to happen, So, it was the right place and the right time.
And those two albums are phenomenal, Lawyers in Love and Lives in the Balance. I mean, what great records, very powerful songs there, man. Yeah,
I mean, it was funny. He was an artist that I wasn't drawn to that much prior to working with him. I thought he was, I wasn't ever somebody who listened for lyrics first. I always listen to feel. I want to hear the guitars. I want to hear what the record, feels like. And usually I like things that have a very strong roots presence, like the Rolling Stones. Obviously, they're very blues influenced, and other groups same ways. But Jackson was definitely coming from more of the Bob Dylan, if you will, school of recording. So I like Doctor My Eyes, but until I worked with him, I didn't fully appreciate what he was doing, and I finally did. I finally got it.
That being said, that one particular song, because I'm the same way as you are pretty much. I'm more of a feel guy than lyrics. But that being said, that song "Lives in the Balance" is very powerful, melodically and sonically, and I could hear the pipes, like the keyboard, that it was sounding like church pipes almost, on that particular song. The little fills in between, the chorus. Great track, man. John Mayall, talk about a guy who picks good guitar players, man. This guy's got a little bit of a history. How did that all come about?
That came about through my friend. You probably know his name, Larry Taylor, bass player with Canned Heat.
Okay, yeah.
You know the group Canned Heat.
Oh, yeah, I love them. Yeah, I love them. I have all their great.
Going up to the country and all.
Well, there's all their stuff.
Larry was on hiatus from Canned Heat. I don't even know if Canned Heat was working at all at that point in 1974. And he was working with John Mayall. And talk about people who likes to change their band members. John Mayall's known for it. You mentioned the guitar player. So I got a call from Larry Taylor saying, John's changing his guitar player. You want to come up? Of course.
Yeah.
So it all happened because of Larry Taylor, and then went up to the house. There was a couple of guys up there jamming with John. He sent them off, we played, I think, 2 songs, and after the second song, he says, "You're in." So I got the gig, and we started working on a record, I think maybe a week later.
Wow.
And that was in November. It was finished in 2 weeks. And in January, we started touring, or rehearsing for a tour, and toured all over Europe. And I toured for about a year with John on that record. And then I did about three other records with John subsequently.
What was the year that this first album got done, if you remember?
The Mayall record?
Yeah, the first one you did.
It came out. It was called New Year, New Band, New Company. He had just switched to ABC Dunhill, 1975.
That to do a record in 2 weeks in 1975 was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, John. That's John's style. He'll write the song at night. He'll record it the next day, and no overdubs, and mix it that day if you can, or soon after.
Yeah. How is that? Is he just Is he just like? How is he different than other people? I guess is the proper question.
Well, at that point in time, people were really starting to get into spending long periods of time in a studio. Studio budgets back then tended to be very large.
Yeah.
It wasn't uncommon for a record company to give even an unproven artist $200,000 to make a record.
Wow.
It's unheard of today. But John was more of the old school, and I think coming from England, where there wasn't a lot of money to be spent, things had to be done quickly. Like the Beatles. Look at the Beatles.
Yeah.
Recorded their first record in one day live.
Yeah.
And I think John was coming out of that school, as opposed to the LA more extravagant form of recording.
Thanks, Rick. That was interesting. Of all the work you've done, is there any that you would say gave you more musical satisfaction than the other? Not that, one means more to you, but just, you felt musically satisfied, including your own projects in there, by the way.
I think the best, most well-known piece I've ever done was with Bob Seger, Like a Rock, which got turned into a Chevy truck commercial, heard for over 10 years by millions and millions of people, although they may not have known it was me.
I didn't know it was you, to be honest with you.
Right. No, most people wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that gave me a lot of satisfaction to have heard it resounding every day on television. If you on television, you heard that commercial. Fleetwood Mac was great because I was a band member. I wasn't a sideman there. I actually was, had input as producer and writer and artist and collaborator. And then my solo records are very important to me because they, like all artists, they give you more range to draw from. So you can do covers, you can write songs, you can create concepts, and you can control it more. And you can take your time. So that's nice.
Have you come across real laid back, easygoing? Have you always been like that?
Yeah, I think so. My wife told me that she observed me performing on stage as kind of wild and very much outgoing. And then when I get off the stage, I am the way I am. I'm quiet. I'm rambling on now, but usually I'm quiet and kind of even keeled. And she noticed that about me. It was one of the things that she thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. You're not rambling on at all, just for whatever that's worth. I'm probably doing more rambling than you are. I've heard that. Occasionally I've talked to players about this, and it's almost like some of them, and maybe this is the same for you, it's almost getting on stage is the opportunity to be that alternative guy that you might not be during the day, and that's your cut loose time, Is that was like for you a little bit?
Yeah, it is like that for me a little bit, because number one, you've got your friend with you, your guitar, which is my constant friend and the thing that satisfies me artistically and spiritually, etc. And so it's all this preparation and gives you an opportunity to let it all out, where you can't really find that same road to travel on in everyday life. You know, some people are better at just sitting around entertaining a room full of people, you know, nonchalantly and stuff. I never felt that comfortable doing that, but I can get on a stage and I can feel very comfortable about really putting out everything that I can put out artistically.
Yeah, and I've watched videos of you in preparation for this, and I've seen you very easily banter with the crowd and very natural, you seem like right there, you seem totally comfortable, man, which is...
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool.
It's not always comfortable leading up to the show. I can feel upset for days leading up to a show.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
But then get on stage and it's always been that way from the very first time I ever did it, when I was 14 years old. You get on stage, the butterflies kind of leave, and something else takes over.
I totally get that. I had a meeting we had a big bunch of us in a business meeting one time, and I had met a guy there, really a nice guy. We got along real well, and I was talking to him afterwards. I think we went out to dinner or something, and he was telling me that he's really shy. And I said, man, I'm shocked. I would have never thought that. He goes, yeah, but I'm going to be, when I get home, I'm going to need like 3 days to recover from this. He's like emotionally and mentally, spent. So I understand when you say that, the wind up for you, it was before. I totally get that because I've met other people like that, man. Mm-hmm. Well, good for you for not letting that hold you back, because that's an easy excuse.
It's been a process. It wasn't always easy. It was, I was a little bit inhibited when I first started professionally, and then gradually worked through it.
Yeah, man. Honestly, congratulations. It's not an easy thing. Nothing's easy, but it's good that you didn't say, "Well, this isn't for me," because that's your people are always looking for excuses, and that's a good one. I'm not cut out. You got the guy on this shoulder and the guy on this shoulder, and the guy on this shoulder is telling you, "Oh, this isn't for you, man. Just be an accountant or something like that." And
that's right.
And you got to talk to that guy and say, "Hey, man, fuck off. I got to do this thing.
Get behind these Satan."
Yeah, right. You mentioned about when you were younger. You grew up outside of Philly, correct?
That's right.
What was your childhood like?
Pretty normal. I always had a guitar. My mom played a little Hawaiian guitar when she was a girl, so we had that Hawaiian lap guitar. And then they saw me when, rock and roll came in the 50s and all. I was always beating on that thing, so they got me my own. So I always had a guitar, and between that and in the warm weather, I like to spend my time in the woods, catching frogs and stuff like that. That was where I was really happy.
Out in the woods.
Yeah. And going to the shore. My parents' business was at the seashore in Wildwood, New Jersey.
Oh, sure.
South Jersey. So we'd spend the entire summer at the shore. A lot of fishing and the beach, things like that.
So even though you're outside of Philly, it wasn't city like Philly. It sounds like pretty rural.
It was suburban.
Suburban, okay.
Yes.
What kind of work you mentioned your parents' business? What kind of work did they do?
Well, that's a direct stepping stone for me. They were in the nightclub business.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, my brother and I would have our little bands, and my dad would let us play. Back then, if you were a band that played clubs, you played 7 nights a week and jam sessions on Saturday and Sunday in the day. So my dad would they would play 40 on and take a 20-minute break. So we'd do the 20 minutes.
Very cool.
And so we'd get up there and attempt to play whatever we knew,
So you got on stage at a very young age.
Yeah, about 15, 16, I was playing.
Well, plus I think it was nice too when you're playing on stage and your mom and dad are right there supporting you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really didn't think of it that way at the time, but yeah, it was one of those things that just was part of my journey, I guess you could say.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. So you knew as soon as you picked up the guitar, you pretty much knew that was your thing. I
knew it was my thing, but I didn't know I was going to have it as a career until I had one of those epiphany moments that I met Delaney and Bonnie when I was in college, my senior year. And I kept going to see them, and I'd bring little tapes of things I was working on, and they were nice, just sort of patting me on the head kind of thing. And so finally, one time I was there, and she said, "Do you have your guitar with you?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you get it because you're going to sit in with us tonight." Oh. Okay. So it was at a Lehigh University outside of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Beautiful campus there, man. I know that campus.
Really nice part of town, part of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I knew all their stuff, of course, because they were doing exactly what I liked. And I knew the material. I got up on stage, had one of those triumphant moments that brought the house down and everything. And they kind of looked at me and said, Are you serious about this? And I said, yeah, but I don't know what to do about it. And they said, well, you need to come to Los Angeles and we'll help you. And that's, from that moment on, I knew that's what I was going to do.
And how old were you? How old were you then?
I was 20.
Wow. So they were like your mentors, and that's a huge help that having
it was
like that.
It was an incredible help, and that same year, I got to meet Todd Rundgren through a fellow I was working with, Rick Valenti, who was a friend of his. We actually grew up very close to one another, but I didn't know him. And he invited us to come to Electric Ladyland Studio in New York City.
8th Street.
I
know it well.
Record our songs, and he would produce it and see what he could do. So we went up there, and I recorded a few things with Todd, and wound up getting a song on James Cotton record as a result of that. And I kept in touch with Todd, and he was living in Los Angeles part of the time also and had a house there. So when I went out there, I hunted down his address and just to say hi. And he was there, invited me in, and in a serendipitous way, he said, where are you going to live? Where are you going to stay? I said, I don't know. I thought, I'm going to go to the YMCA or something. He said, no, you're going to stay here. So he invited me to stay there, which I did until I got my feet on, my bearings. And he invited me to play on his record, Something Anything, which was the first record I played on.
Massive.
Not bad, huh?
I have that album. I have I think it was a gatefold, album that opened up, if I remember correctly.
It was one of the first double records, I think, wasn't it?
And I thought he recorded that in Bearsville.
Well, it was on the Bearsville label, but he did some of the recording in L.A. and some of it New York, I think. Because
I remember I got that record, and I was so excited. I grew up in New York, and I was so excited that, this was made in New York. I knew it was upstate, but, I was just happy to see New York stuff being made in the city,
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool, man. So you had a couple of guys like really sort of shepherd your career and help you out with that.
It was miraculous that those things fell in line for me. When I contacted Delaney and Bonnie once I moved out there, they hired me. It wasn't just that they were going to introduce me to somebody or whatever. They gave me a gig, and I went on tour. Was on the Dick Cavett show like a month after I headed out to L.A.
Did you have time to like? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize, Rick.
I was just going to say I blew my parents' mind.
Yeah.
I got on TV so quickly.
What was going through your head, or did you even have time to stop and like process any of this? I
realized how green I was and how scary it was, and how inexperienced I was. So I was not a natural born alpha dog or anything like that could jump in there and just take full advantage of my situation. For me, it was more of a learning process and an assimilation process. How do I arrange all this in my brain?
Sure. Well, 20, how the hell, who has the coping skills at 20 to be even if you're an alpha, even if that is your nature, I mean, at 20, you just don't have those coping. I wouldn't think. I certainly didn't have those coping skills.
There were people that I'd meet, like for instance, Duane Allman.
Mm.
He was very much a natural born leader, alpha of that Allman Brothers experience.
Mm.
There was other people I'd meet who were not much older than me that just, you could just tell they had more of a command of things at an earlier age. Doesn't mean it lasted very long.
Sure.
They often were people who had problems too.
Yeah. 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 Well, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I didn't have my shit together till much, much, much later than that. So that seems totally reasonable to me, man. Mm-hmm. And as you know, you've raised kids. Like, I don't know what your kids are like, but my kids are 20. I don't think they could have done that either. So it's a lot to process.
It is.
What were some of the bigger obstacles? This kind of ties in with that you've had to overcome throughout this journey, either business, personal, or musically.
Well, first let's start with personal, I guess. Confidence.
Hmm.
I wish that it came easier to me. I had to force myself to be confident.
Hmm.
It's like going into battle. Who's prepared for that? Very few people.
Yeah.
But they do it. You have to learn to deal with the fear of the whole situation, fear of failing or fear of not being good enough or this or whatever. How am I going to make enough money to live on, et cetera. All those things you go through when you're first starting out. So, whenever I accomplished something good, it was usually because I at least convinced myself that I could do something, that I garnered up enough confidence to get through any particular situation. So musically,
hold on, let me ask you a follow-up question. I'm sorry, before you go on to the next topic. Is that something that's like kind of plagued you, not plague's the wrong word, but something that you've struggled with your whole career, or was there a point in time where you sort of said, okay, I got this now? Or because I've met a lot of players that have, today, and they've been playing as long as you have, and they still, it's an issue. I mean, we all have our shit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would say that in my 20s was definitely, my 20s were tough that way. Even though I accomplished some really cool things, that was a proving ground. I think when I turned 30, I felt like a weight was lifted off from my shoulders to a certain extent, and the 30s were much easier. And I think I've pretty much gotten past it now,
Sure.
Deep insecurity. You have your days, like anybody. We're human.
That's normal. Sure. I'm sorry, what was the next thing?
Well, you asked me musically and stuff. Musically, it's always been a challenge to come up with something that's original. Originality is what really sells, what really establishes you as an artist. So my strongest point has always been my guitar playing. I've had to work on singing more, and I've had to work on songwriting more, and performing. So some people it just comes easier to. It's just they have it when they're 13 or 14, like Brenda Lee or something like that. It just comes out. I think the easiest thing that came out of me was my guitar playing. So I've always had that. The rest has been. I don't have any hit records. I don't have, those gold records behind me don't say, Rick Vito's record. It's so that's always been a challenge, coming up with something. And I have things that I have a lot that I feel like is original, but now, of course, it's the challenge of the changing music business. I wish I knew now. I wish I had all that I have now when I was 20 or early 30s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's that expression? Youth is wasted on the young, right?
Yes. Yes. So now it's a continuing challenge to try to make some sense of what's going on in this world now, and musically speaking, and see where you fit in. I also never really had luck with managers and agents for some reason. I think it's always good to have collaborators, whether you're John Lennon who finds a Paul McCartney, or you're Elton John finds a Bernie Taupin, or you get your Brian Epstein or somebody that's in your corner. That's always been evasive for me. And I think, it's always try to tell young people, look for those people you can create with and feel comfortable with and trust, and who believe in you, and stick with that, because that can really help get you from point A to point B.
It's a common theme in music in general. I've spoken to so many people, and in a way, I would, as a business guy looking in, I would say it's more of a miracle if you do get somebody, simply because it's a skill. What training have you guys had to evaluate like somebody? It's like, how do you pick a dentist? Well, maybe you get a referral, and but you'll know pretty damn quick if that dentist is good or not. You don't know those things in the management and agent situation until,
so
and then
it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah, and then it gets to the point where it's almost like, shit, better the devil known than the devil unknown. The changing of managers, I have not done this, obviously, but changing a manager's got to be like, I don't know, moving your bank account, or it's just not, you've really got to get screwed, blued and tattooed till you get to the point where you say, Uncle, I've got to because the pain of discovery is greater almost than like I said, better the devil known than the devil unknown. So I see this as a common thing, and it's and I've talked to a lot of players that have really gotten screwed over badly, or not necessarily even gotten screwed over, but just they had an ineffective, somebody that had their own agenda perhaps, and it wasn't tied to the performers.
Well, my observation at this point would be to say that show business is not a great business. And I don't care if you're an actor or a singer or whatever you are. It's not a great business. It can break your heart for sure, because the people sitting on the other side of the desk are in it for a completely different reason than you're in it. You're in it because you love the instrument, or you love music, and you want to sing your heart out, and you want to, whatever it is, you're an artist. And they're there to take advantage of whatever talent you have, try to make money out of it. And oftentimes when that starts to look like it's not going to happen, you start to see that they weren't your friend. All those smiles and all that, that pretty shallow.
Yeah, it's a predatory environment in many situations. Yeah,
it's and you know what? Artists themselves can be very shallow people too. So
yeah,
they say if you've got 5 friends, like like your 5 fingers. Well, if you have 5 friends, true friends in the music business, that's really saying something.
Sure, I totally get it. Yep. Well, thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate you being so candid. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Let's talk about gear for a few minutes, since this is a guitar show.
Yeah.
What's your go-to? I mean, I can't imagine how many cool guitars you have, man. But what's like right
Too
now?
Many.
Yeah, I bet. What's your go-to guitar right now, and maybe what other 2 or 3 would round out your top reaches?
That's always been tough. Like you said, I probably have maybe 60 to 70 or 75 instruments. Some in Hawaii, some upstairs, some out in the studio, some in the safe. So, there's one guitar that I designed from scratch. It's very Art Deco looking, and I'm sort of known for that, for having worked with that. You could see it in, say, Fleetwood Mac, Tango in the Night live concert video. So that's kind of dear to me because it's my invention, it's my child, etc.
I like that.
Yeah. And then, there are the guitars that I developed with Reverend that are, I always have to, or want to have one of those with me because they sound good and, again, helped birth that. And I have a vintage Les Paul that's always, growing up in that 60s era and seeing the guys that played the Les Pauls, I always wanted one.
What is it? What year is it?
It's a 58.
Oh, man. Gold top?
Sunburst.
Oh,
Sunburst, yeah.
With PAFs?
So, oh, yeah, it's all original.
Wow.
So that's going to be featured in the new Burst Believers book by Victor Prine.
That's very
coming
cool,
out
man.
this year. He has photos of it. And that's, I think there's a lot of people of my generation that was the guitar.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And they're beautiful. They're the Stradivarius of our generation. We just had a conversation last night, a friend of mine who also owns one, whether they're going to continue to have the same allure for younger players as they had for us, or whether they'll hold their value or plummet, or we don't know.
I hope not, because then the prices will come down and maybe I could buy one.
Yeah. Well, for you,
selfishly.
Yeah. I got mine when it still was relatively affordable. They were expensive, but not like today.
Yeah. Do you take that out ever?
And all that. No.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
If it was a really special gig that was going to be recorded or something, filmed, etc., and then I knew I would have my personal roadie to have it under lock and key at every hour of the day, I might take it out for a short run. It'd be great to play it live. It sounds you can't top that.
Freaking 58 Les Paul, man. It sounds wonderful.
That's it.
Do you know Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters?
I do know Greg. He plays his a lot.
He gigs with his, man. No, I mean not all the time, but he's got they have a Greg Martin reissue that he gigs with, but he does take it out once in a while. But man, that guitar sounds like, and I don't know if you play a lot of pedals. I know he just like amp, cable, guitar, Marshall, boom.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, the pedals that I use are mainly just for reverb and echoes and tuning pedals, and if you have a good amp and a guitar, you're not going to want for much.
What do you usually play that through?
Well, I have a couple of old Fender amps, a 1959 Bassman. I have a 63 Deluxe Reverb.
Wow.
I have a bunch of old Valco-made amps like Supros. I have two new Supro amps that the company gave me, which I use. I like. I have a couple of what are they called? Well, I have my Reverend amps, but they're out of production. They sound very unique and wonderful. And I have a Fuchs amp, which is a copy of. I used to play Dumble amps.
Okay.
And the Fuchs is a copy of the Dumble. And so, for that like a rock sound, if I want to really get big stadium sounding fullness, I'll use that.
How many watts is that?
That's 50. If I needed more power, I just get a second one.
Sure. Very cool, man. So you're more of a vintage guy, a guitarist.
Well, no, I like equal balance.
Yeah.
There's some things I like about newer products that are, just quality control wise, but they really got it right the first time with guitars and amps. It seems like stuff in the 50s. it was wonderful.
Yeah. Do you have any cool stories behind how you acquired any of your guitars or any of your amps?
Let's see. Oh, yeah, I got a great story.
Cool.
This was featured in Vintage Guitar magazine. And I was on tour with Fleetwood Mac in 1990. And the day before we were to play a show in Cincinnati, it was Thanksgiving. And so we were off on Thanksgiving, and I asked the guy at the hotel if there was any cool bands playing around. And he gave me the name of this club that was a band called Big Ed and the All-Stars. And they played blues and stuff. So I went into this place, and blues band playing, older guy kind of sitting on a chair playing. And after I was there, I saw he was playing an Explorer. And I said, no, that can't be a real Explorer. And as it turned out, that was the Explorer that he bought when new, and he'd owned it all those years.
Wow.
So on his break, I got to talking to him, and I said, you sound great, and how is it that someone hasn't tried to buy that guitar? He said, I had it since it was new, and people are always talking about buying it, but no one's ever showed me any money. I said, really? I said, well, I'm having a very good year this year, and if you want to sell it, we could talk. But I said, I wouldn't. That's a guitar that if you've owned your whole life, I wouldn't want to buy it from you unless you really wanted to sell it, or if the money could do you some good. And he said, well, it really would do me good. I was in an accident, et cetera. He said, I made up my mind a little while ago to sell it if I can get my price. And I said, listen, you go home, I'll go home. You think about it. We'll talk tomorrow. And if you want to do this, if we can and agree on a price, I might be able to swing this. And so that's what we did. Called him after dinner on Thanksgiving. He said, I decided I'll sell it for X amount of dollars on one condition. I said, what's that? He said, well, when I bought this, I bought the Flying V too. You got to buy both of them. 1958.
Twist my arm.
Explorer and Flying V.
Wow.
I got them both. Yeah, that was the story of stories. That was double Holy Grail.
That's awesome, man. Those Flying Vs, the new ones I've never picked up an old one, but they just look really different from the old ones. Yeah, I mean, like when I look at who's the only guy I know that really played one a lot? Not Lonnie Brooks.
Lonnie Mac.
Lonnie Mac, right. His guitar looked like, and Albert King, their guitars looked like big, like furniture, man. And like the newer ones, they just look tinier, and I don't know, they just look maybe more metally, I don't know, but I like those old ones a lot. Yeah,
they used a type of mahogany that Gibson called Carina.
Yes.
With a K.
Yeah.
And they had that sort of translucent finish on it, so it did look like sort of Haywood Wakefield furniture from the 50s.
Yeah, it looked like, God, I hope, you could eat on it if you're not going to play it. It's like a table,
Yeah, they were miserable failures when they first came out. That's why they didn't make too many of them. They didn't sell.
They don't really sell, I don't think, a lot of them now either. I mean, I don't see too many people. Like occasionally I'll see one on Craigslist and it's a young kid bought it from Metal or something.
Yeah,
like
Metal
that.
Guys, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess from Michael Schenker, but I don't think he plays a Gibson. He played like a Dean or something. I don't remember what he played.
Okay.
Cool, man. That was a really good story. Talk music. Excuse me. If I asked you to pick your top 3 Desert Island discs, Rick, in no particular order, knowing that this could change tomorrow, what would like your knee-jerk reaction be to that?
Do they have to be particular discs, or could they be artists?
Could be artists. Just pick whatever makes you feel good.
Well, I guess, the best of Django Reinhardt would be killer. Maybe Electric Ladyland. Jimi Hendrix was, I got to see him several times.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Where'd you see him?
First time I saw him, I didn't know it was him. He wasn't famous yet. It was with Little Richard in 1965. He was playing with Little Richard. And we realized later, when we heard that he used to play with Little Richard, that he was the guy who had taken the guitar and threw it over left-handed. My brother and I had never seen a guy just take a regular guitar, right-handed guitar, and flip it over.
Oh.
And so we got to see him then. Then I saw him again in late 67 and early 68 in Philadelphia with the Experience.
Wow. What was that like?
Phenomenal. Nobody's ever was like him before, and I've never seen anybody like him since. It was the combination of all the things that made him who he was. All those Chitlin Circuit gigs with the Isley Brothers and Wilson Pickett and Little Richard, and his experiences, with race, and just the way he expressed himself. He was a very individual guy, and a great performer, and just a master of volume and tone and dynamics. And the songs he came up with, I mean, it was just, nobody has ever been, he was a real artist, There's other guys that have come along. I mean, there are some great guys, and there's no question about it. Jeff Beck's great, Clapton's great. And there's so many guys that are great now, technically. It's ridiculous. But for me, he's one of the top handful of guys that I saw that just blew my mind. So I'd have to say those two, and if I had to pick a third, I don't know, something really off the wall, like, the best of Dean Martin.
That's good. Well, it's funny. I didn't expect that was surprising to hear you say Django. Because I know you're a blues guy for the most, fundamental, your roots guy, as you said. So I was surprised that you picked Django. Has he even an influence on your playing as well?
Yeah, I've tried to learn a little bit of that style and just stick it into, basically it was, they call it gypsy jazz, but what it really is swing. It's kind of swing music. It really came more out of Louis Armstrong and that whole 1930s era, which I can get that. I don't get bebop and modern jazz so much, but I can get swing jazz to some extent and insert that into what I do. So, and the thing of it is he was an unschooled player like I am. I don't read music. He didn't read music, and he was just everything that he played. He was just drawing out of the ether. So you can have a million Django players who can play maybe circles around Django now. I don't know, but they're not creating it for the first time
like he did. Was. Yeah.
And it's just that pure inspiration and that the beauty of what he did with those mangled fingers. It just touches me.
Well, it's very similar to Hendrix in a sense. What he as you were describing him, I was wondering how much of the appeal was this is brand freaking new.
Right.
So it's I could understand. Yeah.
So we're getting back to originality now.
Yeah.
That's right. Originality on the highest level.
Oh, yeah.
The Beatles were original on the highest level in what they did. Trying to aspire to something like that, you can spend a lifetime and maybe never reach it or touch it.
For sure, man. Do you have any heroes?
Sure. Geez. My musical heroes, probably, I think B.B. King is a hero, the way that he advanced himself. He was always a gentleman. Anytime I've ever heard him speak, or one time I met him and he was a gentleman then. And so, he's a hero. I mean, all these people that fight for our country are heroes to me. I really have a deep appreciation for them. I'm a person that respects police. They're heroes, firemen.
Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
I almost got out of the music business at one point to be an actor. I was at one point prior to Fleetwood Mac, I was doing pretty good as you know, really learning the craft and getting to be natural. I was going on auditions. I got a commercial. I got a couple of small movie parts. And when Fleetwood Mac came along, it was such a. I got signed to William Morris agency as an actor, and when Fleetwood Mac came along, it was going to be full time touring, gone. You know, so I kind of got out of it and lost. I guess you'd say I didn't feel like it was my calling.
Yeah,
it was a sideline thing. So I never really got back into it after that.
Dude, you could have been the most interesting man in the world.
If I had gotten an opportunity, I think I could have done well with it.
Yeah.
But there again, it's just another anxiety-ridden career.
Better the devil known than the devil unknown. There you go.
Yeah. I also like to write, and I paint abstract paintings. I like the design, what comes out in the guitars and stuff.
That's really good. You sell wait a minute. You sell your artwork too, don't you? Now I'm just having a memory thing here.
I have it up for sale. Occasionally sell a piece. I was doing real well for a number of years there. I was in a gallery in Las Vegas where they had rock star like John Entwistle and David Bowie, and my stuff was in there. I was selling on a regular basis, and it folded for some reason. And sort of a lot of the impetus to keep creating was the fact that there was a market for it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Now I just do it occasionally to amuse myself.
That's cool though. So it's a good outlet, I would imagine. No.
Yeah.
Like therapeutic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What's your strongest personal quality? That's a tough question.
Well, I mean, I've been loyal to my wife and family, and I've never strayed from that. So I guess loyalty. I've been loyal to my handful of good friends. I don't take them for granted.
I'm going to ask you one more question.
We've come to the end of our road.
Come to the end of our short road. What's the biggest change in your personality, Rick, over the last 10 years? And how much of this change has been deliberate and how much has been just a natural part of aging?
That's really, you have to really be introspective and look at yourself. A lot of it has to do with just the natural part of aging, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have a greater appreciation for mortality. You know, you view your time differently. I want to still produce stuff artistically that makes that has some not importance, but that matters in some way. So it's a concern to me where I just used to take it for granted that, you know, situations or opportunities would always come along. I think now it's it's not only because I'm getting older, it's just that the world is changing so much and things aren't, you know, I saw a funny video the other day where they introduced a record player to a bunch of 9-year-olds and didn't tell them anything about it. And they were going like, whoa, what is this? And it's a disc. You know, talking about the record. So, I mean,
that's
it
funny.
Really blew my mind. You know, they didn't know what a dial telephone was and things like that. So this era, I mean, look at us. It took me 2 hours to figure out Skype to get so that we could even do this.
No, but be fair to yourself, man. That was more a function of you hadn't updated it, and the new update screwed your shit up.
I updated it wrong. You know, whatever I did, it was wrong because it just doesn't come easy to me.
Yeah.
There's things about this that, you know, and I'm sure every generation has had that. all these kids today kind of thing, you know. So, you know, maintaining your humanity and your artistic vision and all of that, I think it requires a certain amount of concentration and effort to just keep going, keeping it viable.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I want to tell people, first of all, thank you very much for a real cool conversation.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it myself. Thank you.
Good, man. And I want to tell people where they could find you. First of all, it's your website is just Rick Vito. Is it Rick Vito Music? I'm sorry.
It's rickvito.com.
rickvito.com, VITO.
And I'm on Facebook.
So check out Rick Vito. First of all, rickvito.com. A few things I want to make you aware of. His third signature guitar with Reverend is coming out at Summer NAMM in Nashville 2018. When is that? June?
That's a great question. It is June.
He's got a new record coming out later on this year called Soul Slide, and I'm assuming on either Facebook or your website you'll have updates?
Absolutely.
And he's going to be potentially doing a True Fire video on Blues Guitar Slide, and you should definitely get that if you play guitar. He's a badass. Check him out online. He's a really talented player.
I was trying to get onto my desktop here as I'm talking with you because I do have some gigs coming up. I do
cool.
Blues festivals and things like that. And we have a few things. I'm going to be in Philadelphia area at the place called the Kennett Flash on April 20th. In Canada, there's a place called the Salmon Arm Roots and Blues Festival. That's on August 17th in British Columbia, Salmon Arm, British Columbia. Here I'm playing at the W.C. Handy Blues and Barbecue Festival in Henderson, Kentucky on June 15th.
You know what? I think the Kentucky Headhunters are going to be there.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So, I'll run into Greg there.
He's a great guy, man.
Oh, he is, yeah.
Really wonderful person.
So those are all I can get to open up. So there's a few things anyway.
Awesome. And go to rickvito.com and he'll be posting those up there.
Yeah, I always post things, the gigs that are coming up, festivals and such.
And if you need Skype consulting, contact Rick.
Do not contact Rick.
Man, I can't thank you for your time. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. I'm really glad I got to connect with you.
My pleasure, and I feel like I got a new buddy here.
There you go, man. We can hang out when I come up there.
All right, Craig. Now, I'm maybe more likely I'll be coming down there.
That'll be awesome.
My mom or do that thing, I'll get in touch with you.
Awesome. We'll have a cigar.
Okay.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. I want to thank Rick Vito again for his time and candor. Check Rick out online. He's just a real, very successful warrior who's made it. I mean, to have been, relevant for 40 or 50 years as a guitar player, it speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with early product announcements and discounts. And remember, happiness is a choice, man. So be nice, go play your guitar, choose wisely, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.